straight after Ethereum's transition to proof of stake, the head of the SEC came out and said that proof of stake cryptocurrencies might count as securities. He said this just hours after the merge occurred, as Ethereum officially transitioned its consensus mechanism from proof of work to proof of stake. According to Gensler, this could label Ether as a security under what's known as the Howey test, given that it's assumed to provide profits. From the coin's perspective, there's another indicator that under the Howey test, the investing public is anticipating profits based on the efforts of others, Gensler said. This was a turnaround for Gensler, as previously he said that Ethereum, like Bitcoin, may be considered a commodity. Now they are saying under the purview of the SEC, it is likely that it is considered a security. Now, if Ethereum is really considered a security, we know what ramifications this actually has, as there is rigorous reporting from an exchange side that must happen under the securities law, and also Ethereum would come under US jurisdiction, which means the US has a lot more control over the Ethereum network and over how it regulates the buying, the selling, the trading of those assets. Obviously, as crypto enthusiasts, that is something that we don't want, and it could have some serious ramifications. But that wasn't it. This announcement wasn't really even the big thing. The big thing was straight after, where they claimed that all of Ethereum falls under US jurisdiction, setting precedent here with the Ian Bellina case. So this is absolutely crazy, and this just happened today. So I want to break down for you what this means. So the SEC filed a federal lawsuit on Monday against crypto influencer Ian Bellina for his failure to register a cryptocurrency as a security before launching a 2018 initial coin offering, or an ICO. Okay, so they're going after Ian Bellina. But then we actually go into the documents from this lawsuit, and it's point number 69 that stands out. And this point says that the US-based investors in Bellina's pool irrevocably committed to the transaction when, from within the United States, they sent their ETH contributions to Bellina's pool. Okay, getting a little bit interesting now. At that point, their ETH contributions were validated by a network of nodes on the Ethereum blockchain, which are clustered more densely in the United States than any other country. As a result, those transactions took place in the United States. This is absolutely crazy. What they are essentially saying is that because the majority of transactions took place in the United States, they basically have jurisdiction over ETH itself and are using this as a precedent to set against Ian Bellina in the case. This is pretty crazy, and CoinLive has a very good summary of what this actually means. So does this mean that the SEC has jurisdiction over all activity on Ethereum now? I mean, what is the border between freedom and regulation? They say that since they made this comment in the lawsuit, we can clearly see on Etherscan that 46.19% of all Ethereum nodes currently operate in the United States. So it is true. There is, a large portion of the nodes that actually do operate in the United States. So on September 16, 4 days ago, SEC Chairman Gensler, who shared his comments just hours, obviously spoke about the Howey test, a test using courts to determine whether an asset is security, and alluded to the fact Ethereum was a security. So he's long argued that most crypto assets are securities, which would obligate both issuers and exchanges to register with the SEC. So essentially, the SEC came out and said that it's likely proof-of-stake coins are issued as a security. And now, because the majority of Ethereum nodes and the transactions in this case actually took place in the US, then the US would essentially be able to claim US jurisdiction over Ethereum, which means they can regulate the Ethereum asset. This does have some massive ramifications for Ethereum in the long term. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. This guy says here, this could have a wide range of consequences. Boomers will do anything humanly possible to ruin our lives. It just never ends. Adam Cochran came out and said the SEC had an easy potential win here that none of crypto would have complained about, going after a token pumper for promoting to US customers. Yeah, exactly. No one would have complained about that. But instead, they shoehorned in an argument that all ETH transactions are in the US because of a higher node density there, as we can see verified via the Etherscan data itself. Rather than take on a simple case, which they could have done with the Ian Bellina ICO case, the SEC is trying to use this to set precedent, claiming that all of crypto is under the SEC's jurisdiction. That is absolutely crazy. That is not what we want to hear as crypto enthusiasts. And this sets a very awkward and, kind of scary precedent here for how crypto assets are regulated. This is a lot bigger than just how Ethereum is regulated. This potentially, if Ethereum sets precedent here, then all proof of stake platforms would come under the same jurisdiction, right? He said this is an absolutely unacceptable overstep that will have to be pushed back against aggressively. This is exactly what is going to end up happening, in my opinion. There will be a massive pushback, but it's just such a backflip off the back of the previous comments that Gensler's made. And this is overall not very good for the space, and it's just another headwind. We know the macro environment at the moment is quite shaky. It just adds another headwind to this environment. Now, the headwinds don't get any easier for Ethereum either, because the transition from proof of work to proof of stake, although it had some major benefits, one of the benefits being speed and eventually leading to scalability, you do have a trade-off. And the two trade-offs are security and centralization. Ethereum is now objectively more centralized than it was on proof of work. And I guess the question becomes, were those trade-offs worth it? I mean, that's something you have to determine yourself as a viewer. But in terms of the centralization trade-off, it was massive. And we've seen ETH become a very centralized network, honestly, compared to other networks. Now, I'm not trying to FUD Ethereum. I am trying to give an objective overview based on the changes we've seen. And just in a few minutes, I'll give you my take on what all this means for the future of Ethereum itself. But let's actually look at the beacon chain depositors. So these are the depositors of users wanting to stake Ethereum. We can see that Lido constitutes 31% of the staking share, followed by Coinbase at 14% and Kraken at 8.5%. So essentially between these three parties, Lido, Coinbase, and Kraken, over 50% of the ETH staking or 50% of Ethereum is controlled by these three entities. Now that obviously is a negative thing because these three entities now have the majority control over the network. So that's absolutely crazy to me that just three parties or just even two wallets, Lido and Coinbase, constitute over 42%. It's crazy, or 45%. So that was the first thing that happened when Ethereum transitioned from proof of work to proof of stake. We did get this relative centralization increase. And then some other data came to light, and that data was that over 70% of ETH nodes are actually running on Amazon. So it's not just the staking parties that have significant control over the ETH network. It's also Amazon, a centralized entity, because if you guys don't know, the way proof of stake works is you need multiple computers to essentially, operate as nodes. So you can stake on those nodes and earn a certain amount of yield back. So Amazon, or AWS, which is a centralized web service, so essentially you can rent computing power, they are home to 53.5% of Ethereum nodes. That is pretty large. It's a pretty large amount of computers. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean, the entire ETH system's running off one computer. No, Amazon has many, many, many different computers, just like Lido has many, many stakers. So Lido in and of itself, which is technically a DAO, doesn't have control over all these assets. It's not like they can just flick a switch and take all your Ethereum because Lido is a DAO. So it's comprised of governance holders of the LDO token that make decisions over what they do with the Lido platform itself. And the people that stake on Lido are staking through Lido as a proxy. So then Lido's going and staking in validators. So Lido doesn't just have your ETH, and necessarily, I don't think they're going to do anything. But it's just interesting to note. I'm not saying that Lido or Coinbase are up to anything dodgy, not at all. And I don't think it's a reason to panic. It just is interesting to note that it is becoming centralized and or significantly more centralized. And we can look at the Nakamoto coefficient, which is essentially the measure of decentralization. So the lower the score, the more centralized. The higher the score, the more decentralized. Ethereum, or the new Ethereum network, came in at a value of 2. And Solana, just for comparison, has a score of 30. So by this logic, or going by the Nakamoto coefficient, which is a major way that people dictate how decentralized a chain is, Ethereum is now more centralized than Solana. And Solana was one that copped a lot of criticism for being centralized. Well, Ethereum may now be even worse. So what does this actually mean for the Ethereum network? What do I think this means for Ethereum going forward? And am I less bullish on Ethereum long-term off the back of these SEC claims, off the back of the new centralization data that's come to light after the proof of stake shift? Well, firstly, the SEC thing is certainly a worry, but I think this headwind is more for the overall crypto market as a whole, not necessarily just for Ethereum. Of course, Ethereum is the biggest one. It probably comes under the purview first because that is what's going to set precedent. But it is a scary thing seeing the SEC overstepping in this way. But do I think Ethereum centralization in and of itself, is an issue or something to be concerned about? Well, my initial answer will be no, because they've made a trade-off, right? So they could continue down the proof of work path, essentially essentially become like an enterprise chain or a chain that can facilitate big banking transactions, but you're never going to scale and become the next internet that way. So if they want to become the next internet and they're serious about becoming this, Web3 ecosystem that we think they could be, then they do need to scale. And the only way currently that we know to do that is on proof of stake. They could have done it under proof of work, but it would be very, very difficult to get that energy consumption down. So proof of stake made the most sense. And I don't actually think that is a fault of the Ethereum Foundation. I just think that's their vision, that's their end goal, and their vision made it align with your vision. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with this trade-off. It really just depends if you value decentralization and security over speed and scalability. But I also think that decentralization is largely misunderstood, because right now cryptocurrency is nascent. So it's a young industry, and a lot of projects, they actually need to be centralized before they can be decentralized. They need to walk before they can run, meaning in order to foster growth, innovation, development, and actually, push these projects forward, they do need an essence of centralization so they can onboard those VCs, have access over certain chain upgrades to make the chain better. So in the beginning, having a centralized chain is not a bad thing. I don't think centralization is inherently bad. But if your long-term vision is to become decentralized and you're not working continuously towards that vision, well, then that becomes an issue, because crypto overall, it's in the process of the pursuit of decentralization. So decentralization right now, in many cases, is a pipe dream. Bitcoin's still objectively the most decentralized network. Even that, you can make arguments that it's not truly decentralized, but decentralization is a spectrum. And I don't think it's as black and white as just saying something's centralized, something's decentralized. So I think it's largely misunderstood. Centralized elements are needed. Clearly, that's what's happening for Ethereum right now in this transition process. And I'm hoping over time, and I do anticipate over time, that it objectively becomes more decentralized. Whether we ever get there is another story, and this also applies to many other projects, but that is the path we're on. So does the path we're on mean that, Ethereum certainly is going to be, the single state or the single ecosystem in the crypto market, or the dominant ecosystem? Yes, in a way, but also I think this actually opens up room for that multi-chain future that I've been a proponent of for quite some time. And my thesis hasn't really changed here. In fact, with the concerns at the moment surrounding Ethereum, I would say that this thesis has become even stronger since Ethereum switched from proof of work to proof of stake. Because in a way, Ethereum lost its uniqueness and it lost its edge, because now it's simply a proof of stake protocol with worse tech than other proof of stake protocols like Solana or NEAR. So now Ethereum has lost its edge. So what its edge is, I guess, in a sense, is its development, its first mover advantage, and its relative user base compared to other protocols. But tech-wise, there are better projects out there. And although Ethereum is on the path with the upcoming upgrades to become a better chain, there are certainly chains that are shipping better products quicker and are more enticing from a tech perspective. Just a couple of them, like Solana, NEAR. There's many projects. Like, I could go through a whole list here and go through them all. But essentially, these hedges against your Ethereum ecosystem are going to be very valid in the future, in my opinion. And it will be a multi-chain future. We saw Hasib make that very good article on Medium that he likened crypto networks to cities. Like, you can have your New York, and that might be the most populous city, but you're also going to have your San Francisco, and you're also going to have your LA, and you're also, going to have your Dallas, and they all have different goals, and they all aim to achieve a different thing, but there is home for everyone in these cities, just like there is home for everyone across multiple chains. And I do think that narrative is just as valid as ever. So, I mean, it tells us we need to be diversifying. We can't be overexposed to any asset. It's the centralization in itself is not something to be concerned about. This SEC regulatory risk, in my opinion, is something to be concerned about. But let me know in the comments below what you actually think of this issue. And just before we head off, I do want to thank the official sponsor of the channel that has just come on board, Block Wallet, which are a wallet similar to MetaMask, but they have a few features. For example, free swaps, a very, very good UI. And honestly, I wouldn't have partnered with them normally. I don't usually take too many projects under my purview, like the SEC, in terms of sponsoring the channel, but I have started to sponsor the channel a bit more. And when I actually used Block Wallet, I realized just how good the UI actually was. And I wouldn't be bullshitting, just because they're my sponsor. Like, I genuinely have started in some cases using Block Wallet over MetaMask just because the UI is really nice. So look, if you want to test it out, get access to the free swaps. And also, it's across multiple networks, Phantom, AVAX, etc. Check it out. have some fun on Block Wallet, diversify your assets across multiple wallets, because, you know, if there was ever a MetaMask exploit, it might be a good idea to have a couple different wallets around. Although I don't think an exploit's likely, that's certainly a reason to, you know, at least diversify. So thanks to Block Wallet for sponsoring me. There is a link in the description to check them out. All right, cool, guys. I will see you in the next video. Peace out.